Night Owls to the Book Club After Dark podcast, an inviting moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We break down fantasy, romantasy, dark romance, and thriller novels.
All things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy, especially tonight.
Oh, yes. Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, character breakdowns, fan theories, and more. And here's your content warning. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language and descriptions of mature romance, as well as depictions of violence and other intense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Yep, and going forward from here, there's going to be lots of spoilers for Eldritch as part of the Eating Woods trilogy by Kerri Lake. So consider this your spoiler warning.
Let's get cozy because the best stories are told after dark.
Okay, Michelle, tonight's drink of the episode is called the Bone Whip.
Ooh.
And it has like some that kind of color, I guess, like a bone type
Creamy
color to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but so what it is actually, what gives it like the more brownish tinge is it has coffee, dairy-free, of course, coffee ice cream, cold brew coffee ice cream, blended with some ice, some cold brew coffee, this outrageous bourbon cream, and also junior mints. Because I wanted some like speckled aging type look to this.
That's a whole
Yeah. So blend it all together. It's called the Bone Whip. I put coffee in it because the other thought would be I wanted something like energy inducing, because when you're utilizing your magic in this world, you're expelling a tremendous amount of energy, whether you're passing through the Umberville, which is a band of energy. There's energy forces throughout this whole world, and use of it and needing the Vivicantum, kind of where we're at with Zavander. There's a couple reasons why energy and coffee to me tied together for a drink. We've been using a lot of fruit drinks and things like that for Mavis with the oranges and stuff. And I wanted to bring in coffee in one of our beverages, and also wanted to tie in the fact that energy usage is such a big part of this story. So we're going to talk about the Bone Whip magic that Mavis has. And of course, you know, the whole tie-in to Morsana, who is, you know, our goddess of death and things of that nature. But I like the color that tied to the Bone Whip. And I also thought that the energy component, meaning the coffee element of the ice cream and the cold brew, and even the candy kind of giving that energy, you know, with the sugar, is something that I thought tied in very well with this drink. So that's tonight's drink of the episode. It's basically a coffee milkshake, and it's delicious.
That's your second milkshake for this series, because you did that another time too.
Yes, we did a
Love it,
like dirt thin mint one with the Girl Scout cookies. Yeah, for Anathema. So I was like, well, we should do a milkshake for Eldritch too. So
I mean,
here's our
characters
Eldritch
are starving,
milkshake.
So
yeah,
what better way to feed yourself?
I needed something happier. Yeah, we needed something a little bit more joyous in our beverage tonight. So here we go. Cheers. The Bone Whip. All right, tonight we're diving back into the Eating Woods. We're exploring chapters 35 through 52 of Eldritch by Kerri Lake. So whether you're reading along with us or just here for the book talk, we're glad you're here. As always, we have our drink of the episode. We will also have our chapter dense, which we just discussed, 35 through 52, a high-level overview. And we're going to end our episode, of course, with our Down the Rabbit Hole segment. We're going to be talking about genres today, so we'll come back to that in a little bit. And then we have our mystery Q&A, and that'll round out our episode. And also some news, because we are asking you to participate in a clip that we shared on Instagram, and we have received a lot of feedback, and I definitely want to talk about that because we've got about 1 week left for those listening to enter into something that we have going on. So more about that at the end of our episode, so stay tuned. Here we go.
All right, let's get into chapter 35, which is Casimir's perspective. So in this perspective, Casimir and Revezio, they're with Torin, they're kind of catching up. This is like a very much of a catching up, what we've been up to, what you guys have been up to this entire time, which we already know from their perspectives, what's going on. We get introduced to a new character who is Morwenna, and she is Zavander's aunt, essentially. And she's awesome. I love her. She's a spinstress, if you want to think about it. Like, she's a widow, but forced widow. kind of maybe had happenings in how her husband died because he was awful. And we get introduced to a character called the Umbrivore, which is this future spirit of an abuser. Like the way it's like described, it's like you can summon this Umbrivore
Weird.
if you have like an abusive spouse or abusive person in your life. And it's like their future spirit coming to get you out. It's crazy. But we get introduced to the Umbrivore first in talking, and then remember that cloaked figure that we have? So Dravian, you know, we've gotten introduced to Dravian last episode. He comes into Dolian's room, and we see more how their paths intertwine. How Dravian, he really wasn't just so happened to know how to get to where they want to go, Calixar. He was placed there for a reason. There is connections with him and Lois. Lois essentially hired him to kill Dolian because we know Lois is after all of the Bloodstones because of the Septimir. But now, Dolian is smart. Dolian is very intelligent. He kind of tricked him with this Umbrivore who was summoned because the night before he had slept with someone and he dipped out and stole something from her. So obviously, scorned woman, hell hath no fury. So she summoned this Umbrivore to like attack him. And Dolian kind of tricks him into owing Dolian a life debt to save him from this Umbrivore. So now, instead of Dravian being like, hey, I'm going to kill you guys because Lois, who he's still a slave to, because we get glimpses of him it as a slave when Zavander was a slave. He's still a slave to her. Now he's like forced to like help Casimir Revezio find Zavander. He's like, well, your new plan is we're going to go to the Mortal Lands and you're going to be happy about it. So, yeah, a lot of storylines intertwining, especially in this section.
Yeah.
You have to really pay attention to your timelines and where things are being intertwined here.
This is like when there's a couple of reels of people who have done this section where you're like flipping back and forth to the map and you're like, hold on, wait a minute.
Where are we?
wait a minute. What? And you're just like
Where
constantly
location,
flipping back and forth of like
where
names, glossary, location. Like we're looking around to make sure we know what the hell's going on.
Yes.
Chapter 36 picks up in the past. We get multiple points of view in Eldritch that expand our world quite a bit. It really helps to add context to a lot of the things we first learned about in Anathema, and it also expands the world dramatically from a character building perspective in terms of introducing points of view that we did not have previously. So not only are we getting Zavander past, Caligoria, and also Maveth. So we've got a whole lot of points of view in this one, and now in Chapter 36, we're going back to Zavander in the past. As we know, extremely difficult to read these sections, difficult to even talk about on the show. If I remember correctly, Velora was the illegitimate daughter of the king, and she is in the grips of General Lois. And there's the games that she has like for fun, and she made Zavander do some things. We talked about this previous episode, but we're back to this area of time in Zavander's past. So Zavander is beaten in the cell, and that's punishment because he ended up killing one of Lois's pets, as we know, and she now forces him to listen to Velora's screams. And so he's hallucinating. He has days and days of punishment, and he hears Maveth's voice, and he feels her touch on his cheek, and she's begging him to keep fighting, and then she vanishes. And so what's interesting here is that his subconscious is bringing her in. Maybe he's not bringing her in. This is the feeling, and there's something to live for him. And I think that this is something we've been wondering. How do you make it through 100 years of this without your family, knowing that your drive is part that your sister and mother and brother need significant health in another castle that he can't get to. So that's a driving force to try to stay alive. But how much of that can keep you going to a point where you feel like, even if I'm free, am I still going to be the person that can help them? And how am I ever going to get free? And I think for him, Maveth's voice and Caligoria really in general is something that drives him to keep going. Otherwise, I don't
Yeah,
know
for
that
sure.
he would find a lot of value in trying to stay strong.
I mean, I don't blame him. He's being beaten and starved, and yeah, I mean, he has to have something to live for. He's one of the only few that's lived this long. So Mavis is definitely one of those, which he doesn't even know her name yet. He just knows her, and that's it. So yeah, and that gets more tied into later on and layered in these chapters coming up.
Right. And so we talked a little bit more about there's a lot of sexual assault in this book towards Evander. It's pretty graphic, and this is one of the pieces that's interesting to Evander's character and storyline is because it ties into his time with Mavis in a couple of chapters forward from here, where we find out that Lois had pierced him, down below, right, with this enchanted rod, so that anytime he's experiencing any type of pleasure, he would also be experiencing pain, and that pain is going to be tied to pleasure for him. This is dark, probably one of the darker. I know it's a dark romantasy, but it's definitely one of the darker elements, because even in certain dark romances, this isn't an area that's necessarily explored. There might be other
Yeah.
dark aspects, but this in particular, related to assault, is difficult to read, and also a key thing that you need to understand a couple chapters from now, which kind of speaks to how Kerri Lake writes, where she tells you something, but it's because she knows it's going to drive plot pretty quickly in the story moving ahead. That's chapter 36.
So chapter 37 is Evander. After having the piercing done on him, he slips into Caligoria. And what's interesting about these Caligoria experiences for this chapter and the next couple where he goes into Caligoria, we're seeing things that happened to Mavis in Mavis's past before her storyline picked up with us in Anathema.
Mhm.
So we're seeing Mavis's story from a different perspective, like an outside perspective. So
Mhm.
Alistar brought Zavander to Caligoria to show him essentially the consequences of, remember when he pushed Lillivan into the horse cart? Yeah, there are
How could we
consequences
forget?
there. Yeah. The death that Mavis has like held on to like her entire life and punished for. Well, we get to see her punishment here. And he has to watch Sancton Crane. He employs this guy called Lord Eldrick Holloway to essentially see if Mavis is a witch by stabbing her multiple times with an object. So if you're familiar with the Salem witch trials, they did all kinds of crazy shit to prove a woman's a witch, throw her in the lake. If she drowns, she's a not human, but she's dead. But if she swims, she's a witch and should also be dead, damned if you do, damned if you don't, ultimately. And so Sancton Crane embodies this sort of religious fear of magic and the unknown and everything. So they like just take this tool and just stab her a bunch of times. And this drives Evander mad because he wants to be able to help her. And he realizes his actions created this consequence that's not against him, but against her. And what Alistair essentially does, and this is where last episode, I had like this question, like, how did he forget Mavis? How? Like, I don't understand how he forgot Mavis. But Alistar basically takes him away from Caligoria and is like, no, you're going to let the fates decide what's going to happen. You're done fucking around here because clearly you are creating all of this nonsense. And he's going to come to her again in just a couple of chapters. But then Alistar is like, he is getting fed up with it. And you don't really know why, because Evander's kind of confused and he just becomes frantic. But here I believe Alistar is seeing Zavander get too strong for his own good, and too strong to where Alistar, which is Cadavros, that he doesn't want someone to be stronger than him. So now he has to control it. He's like, oh, let me expose you to this power that I can control. And he's realizing, wait, I can't control you, even like in this early stage. And that's going to bite me later on. So now he's getting really frustrated with him.
Wow. Shocker, right? You want someone that's really powerful, but then you have someone that's really powerful, and now they're too powerful.
Oh, no.
Okay, then. Classic. All right, chapter 38. So we're in Mavis' perspective now. We're back in this temple, that we were trying to escape the spiders, right? These are bigger than the cat-sized spiders that we were talking about before, and these are the ones with like the faces and their bellies and all kinds of fun stuff. It's good times. We've now left the little house that we were in, the Crone Witch's house, and we've journeyed across. We went and stopped by Moros's house. We're looking for Vivicantum for our boy Zavander because he's not well. He's seeing some stuff. We've got some things happening. We're fighting off former people from our lives in the woods. We've got some things going on here. So we're back with Maveth, and Maveth and Alasia have now entered the temple, which is basically a church, for lack of a better word. They're both kind of this one and the same in Foxglove Parish. Alasia uses this lock-picking trick that she learned from Uncle Riften. No comment. To get the door open. The place is clear of spiders, but they can't find any Vivicantum, unfortunately. So Zavander ends up finding them. Remember, he had been, and when we left off, he had been fighting Theron in the woods before this chapter, and so yes. And he had to end his life, and he was like, dang it, he could have actually traveled with Alasia through the Umberville. So now what are we going to do? And because she needs someone that's magical, that's tied to her, so she can go through the Umberville. Because if we remember correctly, you can fall through this crevice that's created if you can't pass, and it's not a good thing. Foreshadowing? I don't know. Zavander finds them, and he's bleeding and tells Maveth that he killed Theron, and he's like, oh shit, I killed somebody, as one does. And he used the metal rod from the fireplace to cauterize his wound. They are like, all right, we're going to have to camp here because where else are they going to sleep? And they don't have enough energy because, again, they can't really find any food. So they had checked like everywhere for food. They're looking in the house to eat. We're not doing well. Things are not going well. I mean, I don't know in which chapter so far that things are going well, but things haven't been going well. So they're settling in for the night. And Alasia wants Maveth to be like, oh, admit that you love him and, make sure you go check on him because they're all sleeping in like different spaces. Alasia and Maveth are in one room and Zavander's in another room. Alasia seems to not really notice this black mark that's on her own torso and like refuses to really say anything about it, which is highly sus.
Right?
Very odd.
The fact that she's like, I don't know, and like dismisses the conversation. She's like, girl, you know. There's no way you don't know.
And also, like, how do you not? Yeah. We are literally land of massive spiders, and we have like a black thing on our torso. We're just gonna, the virus that's taken,
I like eating raw meat now.
Virus. Yeah, we're just fine. It's totally normal reaction. Yeah.
Delulu.
For real.
So chapter 39 is Maveth's perspective, and she goes and checks on Zavander, so Zavander is sleeping in Sancton Crane's quarters. So it's like massive. There's this massive tub in there, and Zavander's like in a trance, but like also like there's a bath. So he's like in a trance and like tries to attack her, and he's like strangling her, and she's like, do it, just do it. And it snaps him out of it, and he feels obviously this remorse, because he's like, why am I trying to kill you? But Maveth is like, I don't want to say she's unbothered, but she's very understanding that this is completely out of his control. And then they have like this kiss, but he wants more. And it gets complicated here because this is where we get some spice. But it's not, the spice is layered with darkness. So I didn't feel good reading
Awkward
this.
Spice. No.
Yeah, I didn't feel good reading
Awkward
this
spice.
at all. Because she like notices the scars on his body, and because he like, men have moon cycles and they have to like release themselves, and in order for him to do that, he has to literally like cut himself and experience pain. So he has a lot of these scars on his bodies are self-inflicted. So she's realizing that here, and she like, remember she has like these talons now, like on one of her hands, it's like covered in talons. Yeah, she literally has to like grip so hard there's blood, and it was really hard to read this part because I'm like, this spicy time's usually like the fun time, like we finally get here and it's fun. Not fun here. everyone's
Deeply
feeling
layered
awful
with trauma.
at this point.
Yes.
Yes. Everyone, like the reader, the characters, no one's like, yay. I will say the fact that he has like fountains coming out, I'm like, what is this? Reading that part, I'm like, wait. I don't know. I don't know about you. I don't know about anyone, but I don't think it's that much. So I was like, huh, fountain really bursts into the air. So that was a little bit interesting. So
He's a magical creature. He's not
sure,
distinctly human.
but literally he's not a fire hydrant. Jeez. So she's like, she offers him, if you need this, I will give this to you. You know, if this is something that you need, which is a sweet understanding. And he's just like, no, I'm not gonna make you do that. And there's this quote that I really liked from this chapter. It says, "You're a fate I never dared to dream, Moon Witch. The stars I was never meant to grasp, but seeing how this gluttonous world devours the unclaimed, I'm calling you mine." So again, there's like this possession, and he's seeing that she accepts him for as he is, which is like shreds of a human, shreds of a mortal, essentially, with all this layer of like stuff he has mentally, emotionally, physically going on. And then there's more spicy time in bed. That was a little bit more of a relief. That was a little bit, and it wasn't like a full thing either. They're still not, they haven't fully copulated yet. But, you know, it was a little bit more relaxing. And I laughed because it's uncomfortable.
Right, honestly. The Kindle readers and just in general, 2,365 people highlighted that specific quote that you said, Michelle. So it's definitely a popular quote, this idea that for him, it's a gluttonous world, and that couldn't be more true in the experience that he's had, as he's just been used countless times by all different types of people. And for the moment that he finally has met his mate, he wants to call something mine for himself. And most of his life has been about serving either his family or, you know, not necessarily, he wants to free himself of his own curse, but like even from birth, he's literally been cursed with something. And he just has had something taken from him his whole life at this point until he meets Mavis. So I think that that's just if you want to call it romantic in the time that we're in, we can take that quote and definitely take all the quotes Evander says to Mavis really as the best that he can do it.
The best that he can do.
That,
yes.
Yes. Given all the
his
things.
Experience has been not. He hasn't had like any romantic experiences at all. The distinction between like sex and romance is very clear for him. Like he has not experienced a romantic partner in the way that he deserves, and Mavis hasn't either in the way that she deserves. So it's just heavy. So when he makes these like mine declarations, and we've talked about that, like what if your husband just said like you're mine, like a little dragon on a hoard of treasures? It's like, okay. I don't know about that, but him, he needs a possession because he's been a slave. He's literally owned nothing for the majority of his existence. So it's important to him.
And in his mind, because of that, he would never hurt Mavis. He's not, and this is romance to him, and it's his best way of like expressing that. The fun continues in chapter 40. Zavander's perspective. We are back in the past, and Zavander is hanging from the manacles in his cell. Awesome. So the Golven, if we remember correctly from our glossary, there's one in his castle at home, and there's also one here. And this is our half man, half rat, small creature thing that dwells in walls of castles. So he has one here that comes to talk to him. And the way this guy is like, well, this creature is like, there are others that just die. Like, you should just like keep fighting. It's a good idea. You know, he's trying to like motivate him. And it's like, okay, so he kind of has like a little friend, I guess. I don't know. There's these creatures in the walls. We've got lots of creatures in this whole story. And he's trying. Like, the Golven is trying to be supportive. Theron comes into his cell. Zavander is demanding that he wants this elixir because he wants to go back to Caligoria. He's adamant that he wants to go back. He needs to be with Mavis in his mind. And there's just, he doesn't like or understand what's happening with him and the relationship with Cadavros. Right. Yeah. He's like, no, I can't be in this. And so Theron is the one who ended up orchestrating this plan, which we knew already with Valora. We weren't surprised to find this out. We just got confirmation in this chapter. And he included Zavander because he knew that Lois wouldn't end up killing him, was his motivation. So Theron is telling him, like, I knew that she likes you too much, like meaning General Lois, that, you know, she wouldn't kill you. So like you weren't at risk. And he's like, yeah, okay, great. So yeah, sure.
Thanks.
I trust you. Mm-hmm. And then Theron says to Zavander that, oh, what do you mean go into Caligoria? Because Theron's like confused whenever he first mentions this, because Zavander doesn't realize that like he's the only person who can do this, that this isn't a normal skill that everybody, when they're in trauma or experiencing extreme trauma, doesn't also go to Caligoria. And he's like, Theron's like, no, this is a godlike ability. This is not, people don't do this. When trauma's happening, you're there the whole time. This idea that you can just go in and out is not a thing. But ultimately, he does end up giving him the elixir, and he falls out.
And chapter 41 is Zavander, and this is his experience in Caligoria. It's not a good experience. Maveth is in prison because after she got like stabbed a bunch of times, she's just there to rot. Zavander tries to I feel like he tries to be like a fly on the wall, right? But Maveth actually senses him before he makes himself known she's like calling out to him like, Angel, are you there? Zavander essentially promises to protect her from being burned because that's what they're saying that they're going to do. They're going to burn her alive. He says, the fuck we are. They are. They're not going to burn you. And she like struggles with the idea. Like, what do you mean? You know, what are you going to do? And he breaches the boundary. Remember, he's like, these are different timelines. Completely different timelines, completely different worlds, that he breaches the boundary. He grabs her and then kisses her. And he leaves behind the mark on her shoulder. So she never knew where she got the mark on her shoulder. And this is where she gets it from. And it's the death mark, essentially. So by him breaching this in this timeline, he essentially makes her the marked of the dead. She's like gets death marked from here. Unfortunately, one of the acolytes sees the death mark and she's like, witch, she's a witch. I'm going to go tell Sancton Crane. And Zavander immediately is like, no, I need to stop her because they're going to kill her. And he's not able to stop her at all because Theron wakes him up and yeah, he's just like, I'm awake. And Theron was like, well, you stopped breathing. So, you know, I had to wake you up.
And also it kind of reminded me of like, Theron is like, all right, you're going to go on this like mental drug journey that I'm going to stand next to you for. So if anything happens, like I'm not liable.
Stranger Things. It's literally like Stranger Things when Elle goes into like the water and everyone has to like watch her. And then they wake her up when she starts like, you know, convulsing and whatnot because.
And then she's like, why'd you wake me up?
Yeah. It's like, well, you were convulsing. Your heart rate was skyrocketing, you know? Basically. We're kind of worried here. Yeah. But yeah, Zavander knew he had consequences here. But this is where we get the understanding of where she got like God touched. Essentially, it was him and the gods saw him breaching the timelines, the barrier between the two worlds and all that.
Right. And it's also where Zavander finally is really understanding that he's impacting her directly and has been now for some time. Mm-hmm. And he has a power to do so. We have to remember that there's a significant time lapse between when Zavander is awake and not in Caligoria and when Maveth is perceived in Caligoria. These are not in the same timelines. There's a significant, possibly multiple hundreds of years gap between these two timelines. And this is all going to pick up and connect at some point. So we know Keri knows what she's doing. But just to reiterate that this timeline does not align to the current because, yeah, Maveth was born so much later and all of that. Mm-hmm. In chapter 42, this is more described what I just talked about. Zavander is in present day with Maveth, and he's starting to feel his grip on his sanity wane because his lack of vivicantum. So he is looking at the scythe or the death glyph on her body, and he feels this like pull to it and a power and like a vibration. And his own power is like doesn't like it for whatever reason. It's kind of like a weird feeling. Then he touches it and he gets flashes to Caligoria. And he's like, what the fuck? And then he realizes that Maveth is her. And he wasn't able to piece this together. So what we know is that this was intentionally kept from him. And what we should be thinking is, why was this intentionally kept from him? What did Cadavros not want to have happen? Why didn't he want them to align? There has to be something more to them being mates than we're really understanding from this entire interaction. So there's a part here that's interesting. And we have to know that this mark, for him, he gave this mark almost two centuries ago. This was basically where he had claimed her as his mate then.
Right, when they kissed.
But she wasn't born.
No.
Yeah. And then also like when they had kissed. And so he's like, what? There's confusion here.
I'm confused. Like, to be honest, because I was like, wait, so he claimed her as his mate in the past. And then there was the mention earlier on in this book that, you know, there's that forced bond between them that Theron somehow knows, which how the fuck does Theron know about that? Because this happened in Caligoria with Alistair. And obviously Alistair realizes that, you know, Death God, Sable Fire God together is obviously going to be bad news for him. So that's my thinking and why like he wants them apart. But the way I'm like, wait a minute. So because in this world, you realize someone's your mate when you kiss. So he already claimed her in the past. So when they kissed before, and there was like that inkling, it was more like familiarity. But then like, where else is the forced bond that Theron was talking about? Is it the kiss, or is there something else that we're missing here? Because usually that's like a blood bond.
No comment.
So
Michelle, for all those listening, has not finished the book.
No,
so
I have not.
No comment. Yeah.
This is just me ranting.
Together through our chapters, and we will talk about that later.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Well, chapter 43 is Zavander's perspective, and he is in the past. Again, we get a lot of Zavander in this section. He's muttering like repeatedly, I defy the gods, I defy them, and they take the beast, it slumbers in my body, I feel it, the scorpion crawls over my bones. Just like repeating that as he's shackled. And he's like hanging shackled too. So he's just going crazy. And the guards are like, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with him. And Lois is like, can you like make him eat? And they've tried. So now he gets to go through a very fun, not fun experience where Lois is like, just bathe him and make sure he eats. So they don't give him a warm bath. They give him an ice bath, which, you know, ice baths have their purpose. Not when you're like starving, because it shocks your body. And he's like, he thinks he sees Maveth's face. He's like losing it and his body's shaking. And they literally force funnel feed him like slop until he can't like breathe and passes out. It's awful. So awful.
Yeah.
But he's not doing great. He hasn't eaten. He's losing his mind. He feels like he can't have Maveth. It's, not a fun experience at all. Ever for him.
Nope. And he slips into Caligoria. So Zavander's perspective, chapter 44, we're in Caligoria again. Zavander doesn't really put all this together yet, but what he hears is Maveth's grandfather talking to a member of the Temple of the Red God. And remember where we are in present day in the Temple of the Red God. So Zavander's like, no, obviously, we love a man who is going to protect his woman, and he's not about to let Sancton Crane do anything to Maveth. So he ends up going to Sancton Crane's room, where Sancton Crane is lying next to a young girl who's being abused by him. And in not a surprise there, we aren't surprised by this at all, Zavander uses a glyph to choke Crane and is like, you're not going to burn her. You burn her, and I'm going to basically come back and kill you. So don't do it.
Yes.
So of course for Sancton Crane, he's thinking this is like a god that's come to like tell him and warn him of what not to do. So Zavander asks Caligoria to see Maveth. This is a big deal. He's asking the world that he's in. This is his first time trying to take true power and control over Caligoria instead of using Alistair's way. So he asks, and he's shown to where he first appears in her room to kill her. Zavander and Caligoria is actually the one who was protecting Maveth from present day Zavander's flames and scorpions. Because remember,
the way I was
like,
reading
why
this,
can't
I was like,
why can't
wait a
he
minute.
kill her? Yeah. So remember before we're like, why couldn't he kill her? Well, he couldn't kill her because he was protecting her from him. Him from her.
Which I thought it was like, oh, this is like a mate thing. Like I was like, oh, it's because he's his mate. And here I'm like, no, mate has like shit to do with it. It's because imaginary past him, like like protected him.
Real him. Real him, Caligoria him is like, oh no, this isn't happening. So then Alistair comes out of nowhere, Cadavros / Alistair, and is like, what are you doing? You've messed with her fate now. She was going to be a simple, she was once a simple mortal, and now she belongs to death. So he's like, you've ruined her, da-da-da. And then Alistair makes past Zavander forget. So why do we think this is? And it's so interesting that how this all played out, because the way my jaw was on the floor when I read chapter 44, I was like, what? I was like, excuse me? And the way you knew Kerri Lake had planned all of this before, so she writes Eldritch, but she already had this in Anathema. She already knew how this was all going to go down. And it just kind of speaks to Kerri Lake's plotting and like the way she wrote the series of what we can expect in book 3. That Vasmora is definitely going to have a whole bunch of things where we're going, what the heck? And like, or tie-ins of stuff that's like, where we're like, what the heck's going on here? And she knows exactly where she's taking us. So again, solidly goes under the why this series is continually underrated. But yeah, chapter 44 I was like, the audible gasp of chapter 44.
No, I definitely was like, what the fuck? And then Alistair, I was like, no, don't make him forget. No, he clearly just has no desire of them being together. He understands. And I'm sure with Caligoria, what's to say that he can't see like other futures, right? So he's probably seen a projected future where Alistair / Cadavros is like triumphant. This is just me like speculating because I have no idea. And with them being together, their timelines intertwining, he knows that he is royally fucked. So he has been trying to make sure that they stay away from each other. And obviously that did not work out because here we are. So, Chapter 45 is Zavander, present day now, because we have all the timelines going on here, and they are all intertwining. Zavander wakes up to the sound of footfalls and General Loyce's voice in his mind. I'm like, okay, when we hear footfalls, we don't follow them. This is like survival 101. If there is someone running, then you hear like shadows. No. But what he does is he follows them down the hall, and so when they're in the temple, there's like upper temple floor, which is where they're like staying in with like Sacton Crane's room and everything. And then there's like base level temple, which is where, that's where all of, like the services and sermons or whatever they have is there.
Yeah.
Then there's like below ground temple, which is the dungeon. Temples should not have
Basement.
Dungeons, first of all. That's just, I feel like they should not have dungeons. But they have dungeons.
Yeah, I would concur with that.
Yeah. So he's like following the voice down into the dungeon area. And Theron's back. And Theron's like, my bloodline helps me heal. And the way I'm like, Zavander, you're losing it. Like, me, obviously, I don't know the ending. So I'm like, why is he back? Well, you killed him, right? We did that.
Yeah.
You were stabbed, and I guess, supposedly. And Zavander hadn't forgiven Theron because he was the reason Zavander was like imprisoned for a century. Basically, Theron fucked him over, and he had like that century long of torture by Lois. He was already going to be tortured, but Theron outing him in the whole thing
basically
with
betrayed
Valora.
him publicly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have like this interaction where Theron's like, we were never, good at being enemies. Like, we should be friends. I should help you. Let me help. Ultimately, like, they have this conversation in this chapter and in another chapter where Theron like wants to make amends for what he did, but the way I'm like, a century, that sorry isn't going to cover that.
No.
And so they're like fighting. Then all of a sudden, sharp pain strikes the back of his skull, and he drops to his knees. And yeah, that's how that chapter ends. Very abrupt, very mid scene, which kind of frustrates me because like now we're going into like, now it's the past, and now it's the present, now it's the future, now it's all the things.
Yeah,
all the ghosts.
We have to remember that Zavander is not a reliable narrator at this point because he is not fully functioning. We do not have a functioning Zavander. We haven't had one for some time, and he definitely is seeing someone he just killed a couple chapters ago. So what is going on? He's definitely seeing some shit that's not there.
His
Chapter
brain
46.
is like rationalizing it too, because he's like, well, it's my bloodline. It healed me. So here I am. It's like, is it?
Right. Yeah, there's some questions here. Chapter 46, Zavander is back. We're back in the past. So we're back where he's with General Lois and imprisoned. Theron, who is actually alive in this portion, we know for sure, is tending to Zavander's wounds. Lois comes in and it's like, why do you keep fighting? Why don't you like just give in to me at this point? I finally, basically fighting her. Why do you keep fighting me? Like, I haven't broken you yet is kind of what she's saying here. And she's like, who came up with all this plan? And I'll just release you back to the mines if you tell me. And so this is where he tells her it was Dravian, not Vane. So if we remember Dravian, he keeps coming back up. And then Lois's father was tasked to find the children that Zavander's father hid. So he was ultimately put to death for not finding them. And there's confusion here as to how this is like played out and where you're trying to figure out who Lois's father was in this picture and understand what happened here where they're all connected. So his father had apologized before he died, if we remember, because he's like, I deserve this. And Zavander's like, what are you talking about? And there was this backstory of Zavander's father that Zavander himself didn't know. And Zavander lives in a castle. So his father's kind of up there in terms of loyalties and power to a certain point. He's a lord. So this is where we get some more backstory here. Lois offers him, she's like, you can, get free here if I can like trust you and start collecting some secrets and, you can start entertaining my guests and, I'm going to bond you and you're going to go out. And when you return, you'll be free. Dravian had told Lois ahead of time, of course, because she's always gotten her claws into everything. And she already knew, literally, but worse. She already knew what was going to happen. She already knew that Zavander was going to lie. So this was all like a setup to just kind of further punish him. And she knew that this was going to happen. But she is not redeeming in any way. And I don't want to make this sound like that. But from an understanding her character and mindset perspective, she's challenged by the fact that he won't break. And I think that keeps her after him chronically because she just can't. Everybody's so willing to do everything for her that he keeps evading that. Like, he won't be broken by her. And she just so desperately wants to break him. There's a lot of backstory here on what has been happening, but ultimately the point of this chapter is to understand more about General Lois, Dravian piece, and also bring us back to Theron in where we're going to go with his story and why he keeps coming up when Zavander doesn't have Vivicantum and he's having these really intense moments in the present. So this is all going to be relevant soon.
Right. And I thought it was really interesting here that Lois is like, "You'll come back because of my kindness." And Zavandra's like, "What? Are you insane?"
Oh, she
And,
is. Yeah.
obviously with
Mhm.
the blood bond, he'd be like forced to come back. So she planned on forcing him into that like mating type bond. But the fact that she's like, "You haven't experienced my kindness. I'm quite the kind person." And the way, like, obviously she's abusive completely 1000%. But like, here we get I don't want to say it's only been up to this point that she's been physically abusive, because she's also like doing manipulation as well. But here we get like the straight like
The full
mind
mind
manipulation
fuck. Yep.
that she's willing to do to make sure that he stays hers and under her possession.
Air quotes. Yeah.
hmm So chapter 47 is Evander present, and Theron is like, "You look god awful. I'm not going to fight you. How about let's be friends. Forgive me and I will help you. I will help free you from Lois, and I will help with what you need, and you will help free me from Lois as well." So they both are, Theron's like, "I free you, you free me. We're all good." And Xander is obviously hesitant to trust him. I mean, I'd be hesitant to trust someone that's a figment of my imagination, but he's hesitant, of course. And he's saying that since they can't find Vivicantum, Theron's like, "You need to eat meat. Like, that's how you get power." And the way immediately I'm like, who else likes raw meat? Alasia. So why is Alasia also having the same urges as Evander? That's interesting. And so when I read this, he points to a cell. He's like, "There's like this old guy here. Why don't you just eat him?" And the way I'm like, that guy's probably important. We find out who he is in the next like couple chapters, but
Yeah.
I'm like, that guy's important. Probably. Let's not eat him. And there's like
Let's not
this.
eat people.
Well, yes,
In
let's not
general.
eat people,
Like,
first of all.
yeah.
But let's not eat the guy that has Mavis and Alasia's name like scrawled in chalk all over it. This guy's
Yeah.
probably important here. And then Zavander stabs Theron with a rusty nail, which is like, it impedes magic, I guess Rust does, and holds a blade to his throat and walks Theron into this like vault. And Theron's like screaming, saying, he doesn't like the dark and all that stuff, which is probably very true,
Yeah.
based on what he probably experienced as well. And then he looks, and the old man in the cell is gone. For whatever reason, he's gone. And he finds a pantry with jars of raw meat, which he's just like, "I guess this will do." And he like eats the raw meat. And the way I'm like, why do we have
What kind of meat is this? Yeah.
Right, what kind of meat is it? Why is there jars? Are they at least salted, and
No, I
then
would
he,
think
like,
they're like some kind of fermented thing. I don't know what's
yeah,
going on here, but it
yeah.
was awkward.
But he sees
And-
that there were, so the way like this time overlaps with like the
Yeah,
next
there's a lot
chapter
happening here. Yeah.
is wild, because he's
Mhm.
there and then the old man's gone. We know in the next chapter why the old man's gone. And then there's in this pantry, like there's jars that are shattered also. It's like someone else has been there. So obviously we'll find out in chapter 48 who's been there. But yeah, he ultimately like chugs alcohol and like goes and follows another voice. It's like, we're just following the voices today. That's great.
Great. It plot thickens in chapter 48. And the way that I actually reread both of these chapters, because I was like, what when we were going back and forth, because this one isn't, because this is an hour before the previous chapter. So talking about jumping in time and all over the place, we're doing it again right here. So this is chapter 48, Mavis' perspective, an hour before what we just saw for Zavander. We did this in Anathema at the end. So this is another example of doing this again here in Eldritch. So I would imagine in Vesmora book 3, we're probably going to do another similar thing from perspectives and timeline that are close in time. And this is another example of that. So Mavis wakes up because she's like, "Where's Evander?" Okay.
Following
and
the
then
voices.
she looks up and Alicia's just standing there in the hallway. Eyes are black. That's not creepy at all. Fine. Everything's fine. And so she's like, "Oh, I need to go find him." Air quotes. We don't know who him is for this part. Mavis follows Alasia down, 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 where 36 children have been sacrificed. Okay, if we weren't disturbed before, we are now. Yeah.
I actually cried in this.
This was very rough. So
Yeah.
There's children here. There's a bunch of them that are still there. Mavis uses her bone whip to open the cell to gather this 5-year-old little girl who's still alive. And all these children have this pox, which is basically a disease that's highly contagious and spreads fast, and that, they're going to die anyway, basically, because they already have this. And Alasia's like, you should just kill her, which is very strange because Alasia said the same shit about someone else when she went and killed the mermaid earlier. And we're just like, what is going on? And even Mavis is like, what do you mean?
You will not touch her.
No.
You will not.
She's like, what? She's like, yeah, you should just kill her. And she's like, no, wait, what? No, we should not just, what? So Mavis is holding her. This is a very difficult chapter to read.
Yeah.
She's holding the little girl and she's telling her, just imagine your mom's holding you and she's with you. And she ultimately she summons a death glyph and the little girl ends up disintegrating. And she does this because it's an act of mercy towards the little girl because she is in such pain and she's already, dying. She's not eaten. She's not doing well at all. And she's not going to make it. So she's basically already on death's door and is in so much pain that as an act of mercy and kindness, this is Mavis' choice of what she does. So Alasia hears her father's voice down the cell. I wonder if we've seen this guy before. And she hears the cough and ends up finding their father, who we thought was dead.
He had a death certificate. He had a whole certificate.
Yeah. So we're like, what? Sackton Crane imprisoned him because he went to go share this. He heard a story from a woman in Liberia that has said that she had seen the end of the world. And Sackton Crane's like, whoop, we've got to throw you in jail. Can't have that. So threw him in jail. And Mavis' father had seen Zavander. He had just told her, oh, by the way, I saw this guy and he was talking about eating me to someone. To no one.
But okay, so in Zavander's this is where I got kind of confused because in Zavander's timeline is eat him, put Theron into the prison thing and then leave. It seems like that happened really quickly, but literally Zavander sees the guy and then turns around and leaves. How long was he talking to Theron, imagining this conversation with Theron? For him to see Zavander or see Mavis' father and then turns around and he's gone. Because clearly he's gone because he went with Mavis and Alasia. So this timeline, I was like, how you're losing your shit, man. How long were you just talking to this guy? I was confused.
Yep. And then we have one more prisoner that we see who is the barkeep from Foxglove. Sackton Crane's
I love
supposedly
Corwin.
said that. Corwin. He said he poisoned people at the bar, and then Mavis ends up freeing him and shows him where they found this food. Alasia starts to eat the raw meat. Oof. And then all of a sudden, 2 soldiers come out. Mavis kills one, and the other one ends up locking them inside. And then Sackton Crane opens the door. Hello. Great.
Where have you been, sir?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And why are we not infected and spidery? What's going on here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That man. So chapter 49, we get Casimir. We're in his perspective, which this is an interesting chapter. They're on a boat. Casimir does not like the boat. He is seasick, and Revezio is just chilling, right? Revezio's just chilling. He's drinking alcohol or whatever. And they're talking to Dravian, and Dravian is saying listen, Lois has actually been easy on Zavander. I've seen her at her cruelest, and whatever Zavander experienced was easy compared to what she did to Theron. We don't know exactly what she did, but Dravian's I've never heard someone beg for death the way that he did. So we know that Theron was punished for something at some point. Ezio he falls into the ocean. And this is after Dravian's like, hey, you don't want to fall into the ocean. You actually don't want to be close to the ledge at all because there are these sea creatures called Sirenians. Basically, they're like these killer mermaid things. And
Great.
there's also sharks. And he's like, the sharks are fine. They'll just kill you. But, the Sirenians, they're just going to fuck with you. They're like orcas, just going to mess with you until you want to be
Mess
dead.
with their prey. Yeah.
Yep. So Revezio gets pulled into the ocean by one of these creatures, and Casimir's like, oh shit, I have to jump in. Which they have a fun time fighting these guys off. And they ultimately get to a point where they're like worried, like, oh wait, we might die out here. And then Dravian has this
this
really
is bad.
Right. But Dravian has powers, which I didn't know. Obviously, we don't know a whole lot about him, but he has like these spikes on his back. In the Guild series, Slade has like these spikes on his back, so that's what I was picturing. And they have like toxins. And when the toxins get into the water, he basically like poisoned them until they exploded, which is kind of a cool power, to be honest. And the fact that he was/is still a slave and he has that badass power, like, why aren't you just poisoning the shit out of everyone around you? Like I would, in that position. I mean, he's a slave.
Right.
He's a slave being tortured. So,
You don't have to
like,
tell me.
you would think,
I hear you.
right? Like, you have this power, and are you not using it for why? So,
Yep.
But yeah, we get a peek into them. So these are our side quest characters that we get kind of a glimpse into what they're doing. And after Dravian like rescues them, Casimir passes out because he was bitten by one of these Serenian things, and it fades to black. Lots of fading to black in these chapters as well.
There's a few, definitely. Chapter 50. So yeah, we get this like brief like clip of where they're at. Just like a, hey, by the way, don't forget that these guys are here and don't forget what they're doing. They're over here. They're on the ocean. Okay. Now we're back to Mavis' perspective for chapter 50. And they're getting taken to, Saxon Crane is taking them to this tomb. We go even further. There's a tomb beneath the church. Keep on going.
Yeah.
We're going to keep going down. It's this never ending. We're just going to keep going down. So Saxon is preaching about how evil all the people are of Foxglove, and Alasia is like, yeah, well, you're a hypocrite. So, what are you talking about? She's like being snippy to him, which I was here for in this portion. Yeah, because he absolutely deserves this. Yeah.
Me? First of all.
Like literally. First of all, yeah. So there's this governor, Grimsby, who's there, and there's multiple people here, if we remember. There had been people that were captured, and there's people that are there in this area. And he's calling for Alasia and Mavis to be released. He's like, our town is basically all dead. We don't need to kill any more people. Let's just say that we've done enough killing here and we don't need to do any more. So then this other guy just goes in and cuts his neck, and you're like, what what?
Happened out of left field.
There's revolting.
Like,
yeah. Yeah. So there's like revolting going on. Mavis is like, why would you keep my dad alive if this was new news to you about this plague? So I think you already knew about the plague, which begs the question, why didn't you tell anyone else? And what's the deal with all this? So everyone around in the circle already doesn't like Mavis. We talked about this before. And now these are the people that are left that Saxon Crane is with, and they're all like chanting witch because they're psychotic. And they are chanting witch at Mavis. So Mavis is just like, oh shit, we're going to have to get out of here because these people are cray. And she gets her bone wit going, which only further exasperates the thought that she's a witch. So I don't really think she helped herself in this situation. Right. But also, like, they were already going to think that anyway. So it really didn't matter. So she breaks out her magic in the way that I kind of like giggled. When I read this, I was like, oh, girl, if they already thought you were a witch, we're donezo now. Like, there's no going back. They definitely think you're straight up a witch.
Right. But she's done with them at this point in time. She's I'm fucking done with all of you. I'm
never coming back to these people. Yeah. Like, I've already didn't want to come back here. I came back here. Now I'm with the rest of the town that hasn't been infected just yet, but, gets the bone whiff to escape. Then Zavander is like, throws this big iron door open because the iron door is what's keeping the spiders out from them, where the people are finally like all underneath trying to hide from this plague thing. Zavander throws the door open and he's there with the giant ass scorpion to save the day.
What I liked about this chapter, Corwin, the entire time he's like, by the way, I always believed in you. By the way, I always thought you were attractive, you know?
He's like trying to spit game in the moment. Right? And it's like,
he's like, I will burn for you. I'm burning with you. We're going to burn together. And like when Zavander opens it's like, who the fuck is that? And he's like, the reason why, Alasia's like, the reason why she's not interested in you at all.
Yeah.
So the entire time I'm like giggling, like, Corwin, relax. Can you relax her? And they're like, shut up.
Just trying.
I'm trying to focus.
Yeah. He was like at least we needed some comedic relief because we haven't had Zavander's sister for a little bit. Rakaya's not been really being present. And we've had a lot of darkness, but at least he was like some semblance of comedy that we needed desperately in some of these chapters.
Between him and Alasia's mouth, like her running her mouth and him just like, he's like, I talk when I get nervous. So I sometimes like fart too. So I'm sorry. Does fire like set farts on fire? Like the way like that conversation, they were like, just shut up. Can we not? No, he was good comedic relief in this point in time. And then our hero comes in. So chapter 51 is Zavander's perspective. And he remembers Sackton Crane's face. Now that all of his memories came back, he remembers and he's going to kill him. So Crane realizes Zavander is like the demon from the dream because Zavander went to him and he thought it was like in like a nightmare that he had. So Mavis is like, how do you know him? How do you know what's going on?
Yeah,
and
this is a big chapter.
Right. Zavander tells her like, well, I was that angel. Remember that angel? And she's like, no, you weren't. I was delirious. I had voices in my head. Like that wasn't you. And Zavander's like, no, that's what they told you was happening. It was me, actually. And she's like, so confused. And Crane is like taunting her. Like, he's like, I knew your mother. And because Zavander was like about to kill him. And he's like, wait, I knew your mother. And she's like, wait, don't kill him. I want to know about my mother. And says that she was like a Liberian slave. She was nothing. You are nothing. And he killed her. And an acolyte had been the one that banished her. And
yeah, we basically get the story that we read at the beginning of this book. Mavis gets told this verbally from Sackton Crane in this portion. Right.
And Zavander was about to kill him. And Mavis was like, no, I'm going to spare him. Because somehow, with his turn of events, I'm alive. So whatever, I'm going to spare him. She has a lot to process here. And then Crane started taunting her.
Yeah, he just can't shut the fuck up. So
yeah, no, he decides to like go into detail, like killed your mother and blah blah blah.
Oh yeah,
and go into like
as soon as that
detail.
Happened,
and she was like okay, since you like to run your mouth, death. She like touches him and he like disintegrates into ash. Which I'm like, good for you, girl. You're the one that gets to kill the person who tormented you your entire life. And
I loved that. I love that Kerri. Yes, I love that Kerri Lake had Mavis settle her own score with Sackton Crane instead of Zavander coming in and saving the day. She made the choice instead of him, and he let her. He listened to her, didn't take that from her, and she was ultimately the one who took care of Sackton Crane herself. And I really appreciated that about this book, too, of empowering Mavis with that choice. And here's our last chapter for today's episode. Chapter 52, we're in Mavis' perspective. We're still in the same timeline. They're back on the upper level of the temple now. Mavis is talking to Zavander about all the times in the past now that she felt like he was there. And Zavander's confirming, yes, that, yeah, I was there. And he's like telling her, you're the reason I kept fighting. You're the reason I stayed alive. We talked about that a little bit at the beginning of this episode, but this is where it's really outlined. I like this chapter too, because you finally get a little bit of closure and understanding of their true relationship because they're finally talking about it. This chapter frustrated me in the sense that Mavis tries to put this wall up between them again because she feels like, why didn't you tell me this sooner? You're basically the reason I had such a hard life because you went and pushed this girl. You know, you had all this impact. You touched me knowing that you weren't supposed to. Like, why did you do all this stuff to me? And there is a quote from him that is one of the most highlighted of the entire book, where he says, "Do not imagine there's anywhere you could go, anything you could possibly say to keep me away from you now, Moon Witch. I remember everything, and I will not lose you again." And the way I was like, okay, we forgive him, Maveth, now. We forgive him. We forgive him. And then she's like, well, I don't know if I want to. So she just sits there for an hour or so, and her mother appears before her, which we knew had a brutal death. Sancton Crane had just talked about it and taunted her with this brutal death. And she tells Maveth, because remember that Maveth can see dead people. She hasn't seen any dead people in a hot minute that we know of, that we've seen. And so she sees her mother. Her mother comes to her. And this is something I've been waiting for to have happen kind of since I knew she could see dead people. I was wondering when dead people that she has in her life were going to finally start to appear. It's interesting to me, the timeline of when Maveth's mother shows up. And she tells her, I tried to save you. And now I know that I can be at peace because you are safe and loved. Her mother is saying this to her. And then she tells Maveth, like, it's okay. You know, you don't have to mourn me. It wasn't meant to be, and it was never meant to be. This is like destiny, basically. You're fulfilling fate, and so was I. And it sucks, but it is what it is, kind of thing. And Maveth is just not having it. She's just in despair, as anyone would be, that she finally gets this moment to see her mom and never got to have life with her, and knows that her mother loved her, and gets the closure that she wasn't just abandoned in the forest. She now understands she was very much loved, and that she just was stolen by Sancton Crane. And it's a brutal realization for her. And I think some of that closure came from her mother coming to talk to her about it. So her mother tells her, just be strong. And Maveth just passes out when her mother touches her face. So she faints at this point. And that ends our chapter.
Well, she can speak to, or she can see the dead, but now she's like, okay, I want to touch the dead. And so obviously we'll see if that has any repercussions here. But I think Maveth's mother waited because from my understanding of like how Maveth can see like the dead, it's generally about where they died. You know, she saw people in the forest because, you know, they died in the forest. Although that's not, that one guy did appear to her in like her room. So maybe that's not entirely true. But maybe in general, you know, her mother talked about how she was like wandering. Here. Yeah, talked about her wandering. And since she's in essentially the place where her mother died brutally, that she was able to like find Maveth. And, you know, her spirit was called to her or whatever. But yeah, this was a hard chapter because she just really wanted her mom. And that sucks. Like wanting someone that you've never had, because her life was awful, and knowing that, you know, maybe if I had like the love of my mother, it wouldn't have been so bad. So, but her mom's just like, don't mourn what could it never have been and what never was. Like, you know, you can't mourn a life that you never had, you know. So there's just so many layers. I mean, Kerri Lake just hits you with,
actually, but I think she's trying to tell her not to. That it doesn't do well to dwell on something that it already has happened. You can't change the past. It's basically what I got out of it.
Right.
You can't change the past. You can't change the fact that this didn't happen. But you know, you've had all this time to sit with this, and you know, you can let it go now. And I'm telling you that you can. So she's trying to give her closure, but you know, it is what it is. Not a lot of closure to be had here.
No, all these chapters, you get hit with one thing after another, after another, after another. Like, shit. I hope there's a happy ending at the end of this book. Not this book, but the end of the series.
Yeah, and I truly, for these characters, my God. I think Kerri Lake does an excellent job of exploring extremely dark topics, but also making you wonder about how you would handle something yourself. And I think this is a good example of that when she's talking to her mom and trying to see, you had this opportunity with someone who has passed in your life. And if you've experienced loss or grief in your life, you can definitely relate to Maveth here of her having this opportunity to see someone who has passed. And there's always this question, would you want to, if you could, have a final conversation for closure? I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of people would. There's benefit to that. It's a lot to unpack. It's an interesting idea to play with from a writing perspective. And I appreciate that Kerri kind of went there and that this was the moment that she chose for her mother to appear.
I agree.
So, all right. Well, with that wraps our chapters. So we're going to transition to Down the Rabbit Hole. And today for Down the Rabbit Hole, I wanted to talk about how we have like Frida McFadden, who's kind of taken the thriller world by storm over the last 10 years or ish so. And then you have, your Sarah J. Maas, who has primarily written in the romantasy genre. And those are just two big ones, but there are plenty of others who kind of stick to genres that they sell well in and are marketed in. And another key point of Kerri Lake is we've talked about how maybe dark romantasy wasn't a fair genre to classify Anathema in, even though there are dark romantasy elements. And the romance piece is a strong driving factor of the two main characters. Is she limited by being in this genre? And so there is a lot of data and articles that are written about, well, once you start writing, you need to like stay in your lane, so to speak, like whatever you're initially marketed as and you do well at, you shouldn't genre jump. People are going to know you for that type of writing or that genre. And, it's not good for you from a sales perspective to jump around. So I was curious what your thoughts are, and I will give you some data to go off of to support that. But first response before I follow up.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think authors do tend to stick to what they know and what they're good at, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, look at Callie Hart, who she wrote mostly dark romance, and then she dipped her toe in romantasy, and now look at the whole Quicksilver Fey and Alchemy series explode. So, I mean, that's just one example, but there are other, I believe J.K. Rowling, she tried to dip her toe in more like adult writing, and that didn't do as well as Harry Potter. So there are like some that
she adopted a pen name when she changed her genre. So that was interesting for her to do that. But, Rebecca Yarros did it. She was a contemporary author.
Yep.
Yeah. She was a contemporary author for a very long time, still is a contemporary romance author. And before she took the risk of doing Fourth Wing. So there's a lot of articles that say you need to establish yourself in one genre before you're really going to go try to genre jump, because you need to have a fan base.
These authors have.
Correct.
I mean,
All
Callie Hart wrote for a decade. Yeah. And Rebecca Yarros has written for probably just as long. So, yeah, I mean, I would agree to that. Like, you shouldn't write one book that's a thriller and another book that's a romance, because like, what if someone liked your thrillers and now they're like, you're kind of,
what do I do?
Yeah.
They're confused as to kind of where to put you, because the mind wants to box you in so desperately, which is a human error problem less than it is an author writing problem. But it is true that the way things are marketed, we're conditioned to think of someone as, oh, what do they write? Oh, well, they write this. So in switching genres entirely, or really mediums, let's talk about comedy. In Key and Peele, you have these two hugely famous Comedy Central stars in comedy. And Jordan Peele eventually splits off and he starts writing some of the best horror films that we've seen come out. And he just really tapped into something he always wanted to do. He had mentioned that. And he's like, I just stayed in comedy because I was like, my way, that's how I started. And then I always eventually wanted to write these psychological horror films. And they're hugely successful, of course. Best known for Us, which was a Halloween Horror Nights house. Also Get Out, which was great. So he's just a classic example of genre jumping in a different medium. But the same thing.
He was with Comedy Central for more than a decade. Like for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So he tried to bring the Twilight Zone back. It didn't really stick because I think that season came out like 2019 to 2020, and it was right before COVID. So I don't know if they just didn't renew the series for that reason or what happened with that. But he's just done tons and tons of other things outside of that genre. But to your point, he has genre jumped, but it was only after establishing himself. Right. So I wonder too, to that in that vein of if you're going to write, are you kind of stuck to one genre for a certain time and you better like pick the right one that you want to write a lot of work in, or you're going to just know you're going to be stuck there for a while? How risky is it to jump mid-career? And most people just don't do it.
I feel like, writing is a risk anyways. Whether you stick to one genre or you don't, it's a risk when you're writing a story, whether people are going to receive it or not. People are creatures of nature. That's just who we are. And if we like romance and we find
creatures
like
of
one
habit
good romance,
is that what you meant?
Yes, that's what I meant. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
People are creatures of habit. So like when we find something that we like, we kind of stick to it. So like with Rebecca Yarros, if you like romance and you find her and you're like, wait, you have like 5 books and I can read and I can binge these, and I'm getting my dopamine from your writing, and then people are going to like tend to want to read more of that. And then but if you do like a genre jump like too early on, people might be receptive, they might not. I feel like it's a risk either way, right? It could be timing also, because imagine if like Rebecca Yarros wrote Fourth Wing during the dystopian era, the early 2010s. Like that was a dystopian everything. We weren't really watching or reading things about like dragons and all that. So imagine if it was like just a different, like the times didn't align for that type of genre to really.
Well, romantasy as a whole wasn't really even a fully functioning. It was a thing. It existed, but from a popularity perspective, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't have Book Talk or Bookstagram or really any of that at that time. So the way that you become popular is a factor too. Yeah.
Absolutely. So timing could just be an entire, like if you jump to a genre that isn't quite popular yet, it's not necessarily your writing. It's just people haven't picked that up yet. So yeah, honestly, just write what you want to write, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be a risk either way. You publish something that is something entirely new. It could be the same genre. You're just exploring new characters. Yeah, that could be a flop. So I feel like authors like McFadden she's just really popular. One, she publishes how many books a year? Like a lot. And her writing is very formulaic. You have the different perspectives of the different characters, and they're just, the characters, I don't want to say they're exactly the same, but they all fit neatly into different tropes. So you kind of know what you're going to get with her thrillers, even though you might not know like the ending. You kind of, your brain's kind of relaxed ultimately just because you know what's going to happen.
It's a beach read. I feel like her books are kind of like a beach read. They're shorter, 300-ish pages, formulaic. You know what you're getting. It's a paperback most of the time. You're going to read it at the beach, and that's kind of, she's known for that length of book. If she just like went out and was like, oh, I'm going to publish a 750-page romantasy, I think everyone would be like, the what? I think everyone would still read it, but you would read it because,
it's McFadden. Even if she tried to do like a horror. Like I feel like even she tried to do something more like what Stephen King writes or anything, like any actual like horror, I think it would even be a jump for her because it's not going to be formulaic like she's used to writing. It's not going to be like, the tropes are going to be darker, even though she does explore some darker things. It's compared to like, what we were just reading with Eldritch, it's not as dark, I would say. Like she touches on them, but it doesn't go like very deep.
She doesn't do open door anything for the most part.
Nope.
Even in terms of horror, she really tries to like off page most things. And she writes about that. She's like, I don't think I need to do that. In her acknowledgments, she always talks about how she wants to be accessible to more readers by not having explicitly graphic stuff on page as much as possible. And that makes her better to be marketed as well. Because the second you box yourself into dark romance or dark romantasy or dark anything under that label, you are already limiting your base to a certain point because those who wouldn't jump into that are not going to jump in because they won't want the trigger warning list or whatever. Right. So it depends. I think you can either statistically, you're very likely to increase your popularity because you're pushed into a genre. And the data supports that. Everything I've been researching supports that once you are labeled as a genre, that helps you because now, especially in our world of Book Talk, Bookstagram, we even we can't even judge because we literally at the beginning of our show talk about the genres that we cover. So if you fall into one of those genres, we're probably going to read your book or try to, or it's going to be on our TBR for a long set of
Right.
time. But it's
But if
still
you're not,
you
then
have to be able to identify where something
Yeah.
falls into, because how do you market it otherwise? You have to have something that you can stick to that your book falls into. But regardless of that, I do think you can genre jump. I just agree too with that. People have to know you. In getting to know you, it's going to take some time. It can happen between 1 to 2 books if you want to do it, because writing is a risk, but most who have genre jumped have been successful because they already established a really firm following elsewhere.
Agreed. So that's our Down the Rabbit Hole segment. Now it's time for Mystery Q&A. These questions have not been shared with either of us prior to asking.
Okay. So I got a question for you, Michelle.
Hit me with it.
Have you ever woobled? And my actual real question is...
seen those? I have not.
Yeah. So visually, guys, there's this like learn to crochet kits that are for beginners. And what I really wanted to ask you is like, what is a side crafty hobby that you have either started and want to do more with or want to start? So I started crocheting probably about 10 or 12 years ago, and I was making a blanket, and then it just never got finished. And I think I actually still have the started blanket in a closet somewhere, and it's with, you know, all the other things that I've started and stopped. But I got this Wooble, which Wooble is this brand that like make all these like learn to crochet kits. If somebody's done these, you know, please comment and tell us about it. But I bought this one. It's a Bingo from Bluey. So Bingo is Bluey's little sister. And so this is her. She's a dog. Kids, for those who don't know anything about Bluey. But she's really cute. She's an Australian Shepherd, and it's an adorable show. So this is for my son when I'm done with it. I haven't started, but yeah. So that's my question for you, Michelle.
Okay. So when I had my first kid, I thought I would be really crafty, and I got a Cricut. So I would make like shirts and things. And then I realized
you have a Cricut?
I do have a Cricut.
I didn't even know you
had a Cricut. It is
boxed
away somewhere because I haven't touched that thing in years. And my daughter's 5.5. So it's been a minute since I've used it because I liked making the designs. I really liked making the designs. But then when it comes to transferring the vinyl onto a shirt, I would get pissed off like 95% of the time.
Oh, I've heard that's like very tedious.
Yeah. It's either wasn't sticking, it didn't transfer well, it transferred fine, and then I washed it and it peeled off. Like it was rage baiting me. So I do not use my Cricut anymore.
Got it. It's funny.
I don't know. I haven't. What's funny is we don't have a lot of time. So I'm like, what creative things?
I know. I'm like, why am I going to Wooble when I literally have a TBR the size of how long?
It's a mile long.
I also work full time. Yeah. My son's in freaking T-ball right now, where I'm doing stuff for that. And then I'm I'm doing a podcast as well. No big deal. I have plenty of time to Wooble. It's fine. All the time to do this.
Me and my daughter will make like bracelets. So that's my creative outlet. We make bracelets sometimes. She has her own little bead kit that, you know, we'll just make bracelets, and she's like, "Mommy, I want this, and this color, and yours better look nice." I'm like, "Okay, fine." And I like line them up and I make it all nice, and then she's like, "I'm making a bracelet for you." And she throws like some brown in there. I'm like, "Why? Where is the aesthetic?" She's like, "This is the color I wanted." I'm like, "But what about the color I wanted? You picked out mine."
And then we have to talk about our childhood, you know, inner demons, and we've got to let the ship sail and not be our parents. There we go. We have to say, look, this is okay.
There's nothing more humbling than watching your child play with Play-Doh. And I'm like, why are you mixing the fucking colors? I'm like, I've trained myself out of it. I'm like, it's your Play-Doh, not mine. It's your Play-Doh, not mine. And you can play with all the things. It's fine. But I remember when I first started watching her, I'm like, the blue's here, the red's here. Don't mix them. That's fine. And then she's like, starts mixing. I'm like, okay, well, now we have to make a lump of the mixed one. She's like, no, I'm going to mix them all together. So now I'm fine. But at first I was like,
I can just watch you like being
my eye
twitching.
By this. Like, why? Why are you doing this? Do you hate me? Obviously not. But
no, yeah.
Okay, so my question to you is, what is your emotional support item that you have with you all the time?
It's funny you should ask this question, Michelle. And the reason it's funny is because my emotional support water bottle is actually right here next to me. And also, coincidentally, Michelle did not plan this, by the way. I had no idea what she was going to ask, as we normally do. I'm opening something. And it's from, I went to MegaCon. When did we talk about this? A couple weeks ago. And Black Lab Soapery, who makes all the soaps that we like, made this sticker, which I'm showing right now.
That's funny.
Which actually says emotional support water bottle, and I haven't stuck it onto my emotional support water bottle yet. But yeah, so that's my answer.
I also have an emotional support water bottle. This is
Oh,
mine.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like all of us have that now. And like, why are we so hydrated? What's going on? Because I remember there's this whole thing about millennials that have videos of like, we were like living off Fruitopia, which they literally don't make anymore because it was quite literally just like sugar. And it was not like
just lapping up the water fountain.
Oh, we totally like all drank Fruitopia and it was horrible for you. Coke, it used to be a Coke product. They no longer make Fruitopia, and it was marketed to all of us, just like Sunny D and every other liquid poison.
Sunny D is making a comeback, but it's as like an alcoholic beverage now.
Really?
Makes sense. It's millennials. Yeah, it's like, or it's either an alcoholic beverage or an energy drink, but they're making a comeback. I saw a commercial.
Really? Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to Google this now.
Yeah.
Maybe we need a drink of the episode with this new Sunny D.
Millennial heart.
Have to look into that.
Yeah, no, my daughter.
You're going to say water bottle too?
Well, yeah. So I have a water bottle. I also always keep a hair clip by me at all times because
I keep a hair tie.
Yeah. Well, my 4-month-old, my hair tie, because my hair's falling out because I have all the postpartum things, all the hormones leaving your body and blah, blah, blah. It sucks. So I have a hair clip because it doesn't like tug on my scalp as much. My 4-month-old has iron grip on my hair. So whenever it's down, he rips out like 10 strands and they're already falling out. So I keep emotional support hair clip as well. But yeah, always the water bottle. My daughter even, she has like a 24 ounce and she drinks a 24 ounce. I'm like, I don't even think I drink 24 ounces of water in a day, right? And even in 2 days as like a kid. It's like her daily.
Definitely not.
24 ounce.
We got like a drink out of the water fountain and went about our day. Yeah,
exactly. We just, but we made it.
We made it. We're alive. We're okay.
That's it. All right. Yep. Before we wrap up, let's talk about what's coming up next on Book Club After Dark.
Yep. Next week, we're going to dive into chapters 53 through 69 of Eldritch by Kerri Lake. And we're looking forward to hopefully more happily discussing this novel with you. We're going to hope it takes a turn.
Oh, no. It's not the end yet. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have thoughts on Eldritch or suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message us on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art, theories, or anything bookish you'd like to share.
You can also visit our website, bookclubafterdark.co, to stay up to date on our cozy content and check out our merch.
That's all for tonight. Sleep tight, night owls. Until next time, happy reading.